Greetings everyone, I am Shakina the Neurodisruptor and I'm back again with another video. In this video, I want to talk about why it is considered a form of legislated domestic terrorism to allow Muslims to occupy office here in the Western world. I am going to quote Donald Trump here, okay? Because the reason why I draw a lot of inspiration from Donald Trump is because Donald Trump prioritizes power over people. He understands that the country is significantly more important than its citizens and its inhabitants, which is why he doesn't try to sugarcoat our current political circumstances and doesn't support the lackadaisical milquetoast approach that political leaders like Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau like to take. It's very popular right now to want to be inclusive of everybody in the political arena. And it's very popular right now to be open and inclusive to everybody's religious beliefs. But just because it's popular, it does not mean that it's right. And this is why I particularly appreciate Donald Trump and the kind of leader that he is, because he does what is right, irrespective of what is popular. And he has really set the stage, the socio-political climate, to enable those of us who have been so silenced for so many years by the political left to finally speak out and talk about our own lived experiences and our perspectives on the direction that our political system and governance model should take. And part of that should be prohibiting Muslims from occupying office. Yeah. Now, I've been called hateful, I've been called discriminatory, I've been called Islamophobic, and quite frankly, I don't care. That's right. I don't care what people think about me. I'm gonna do what's right, and I'm gonna do what this country needs me to do to protect it. Because right now, we're talking about marginalized people. You know what's really marginalized is Canada. Our country is marginalized by its own people. Okay, our country, our political system, and our governance model is falling apart because the people of this country are so morally bankrupt to the point that they think including Islam in our political system should be considered virtuous, and there's nothing virtuous about it. When I was running my nonprofit organization, FemCare Community Health Initiative, you can Google it. I'll probably post a link down below if you want to learn more about it. I'm no longer running it. I had to shut it down. And part of the reason why I had to shut it down was because of Islamic terrorism. And when I was running this nonprofit, one of my goals through this nonprofit organization was to advocate for policy change. And so I went and I spoke to Minister Maryam Monsef, who was the Minister of Status of Women at the time. And I told her my story of how I was abducted at the age of 15 years old by my Muslim father and was sent to the Republic of Kenya, where I stayed with my Muslim family, both on my matrilineal and patrilineal side, and how they abused me severely. On my matrilineal side, they tried to marry me off as a child bride to a 33-year-old man, and on my patrilineal side, they held me in solitary confinement. The only time I was able to leave the house was to go and read the Quran. They were indoctrinating me, and so that was the only time I was allowed to leave the house. And when my mother finally rescued me from that situation, it didn't really save me, because then my grandmother tried to marry me off. I managed to escape the marriage, and then my family started hunting me down for an honor killing. The only reason why I managed to escape all of that is because I went to the Canadian Embassy in Nairobi and I got a hold of the Canadian government. I told them the circumstances that I was in. They started an investigation, and within a period of 7 months, I was back home. And this was because of the help of the Canadian government. Obviously, all glory goes to God, Jesus Christ first and foremost. But God used the Canadian government to save me from that situation. And my goal, I promised the Canadian government, I said, if you give me another chance, I promise I won't squander another chance to go to school and to build my life. And they did. They gave me another chance, because that's the country that Canada is. Canada doesn't support child marriage. Canada doesn't support honor killings. Canada doesn't support abductions and child abuse and oppression and depriving a child of education. We don't support that here in Canada. And so what happened was, when I advocated about this and I went to talk to Maryam Monsef about this situation, Maryam Monsef then went and took my story and sat down with other cabinet ministers of the Liberal Party, and they made the decision to turn this into a feminist initiative. So instead of funding funding menstrual products for low-income residents like I asked them to, because that was how I was going to use my platform to advocate for some of these other issues, because ultimately all this menstrual related violence is all tied to poverty. And so if we can get families out of poverty and lack of education, so if we can get families out of poverty, and then if we can educate them, then ultimately that's all we need, right? To set a really strong, solid foundation to eliminate child marriage and other forms of child abuse and menstrual related violence, especially within Muslim communities. Not only, but especially within Muslim communities. And they then instead turned it into a feminist initiative. So when I talk about Islamic terrorism, and Donald Trump talks about this as well, President Donald Trump, he talks about how important it is for us to not only identify our enemy, to be able to name them, to define their weapons and define their agenda, but also to identify the groups that support our enemy's agenda. So in this case, feminists are supporting this Islamic terrorist attack that we are under. And Justin Trudeau's liberal feminist government is essentially supporting, and not only did they support, they enabled and facilitated this Islamic terrorist attack that we're under. So what Maryam Monsef did is she worked with feminists, she collaborated with feminists to cover up and she conspired with them to cover up one of the biggest Islamic terrorist campaigns that have ever taken place within this country or within the Western world, and to also cover up a crime that was committed by Muslim terrorists. Why did they do that? Because first of all, they wanted the menstrual health and wellness movement, it became a global movement. And so they wanted their stake in it too. As liberals, they wanted their stake in it as the feminist, political party. But then the other thing that they were doing is that they were conspiring to cover up this crime, this organized crime that was committed by Muslim terrorists. And why would they do that? Because it disrupts the Islamophobia narrative. Because like I said, Justin Trudeau has really monopolized on this Islamophobia narrative. He made it normal in society that anytime you criticize Islam, that you should just be deemed Islamophobic. And these moderate Muslims, especially the ones who are really trying to infiltrate our political system, if you look at people like Sarah Jama, for example, or if you look at people like Yusra Khojali, there was a whole thing about her and some of her violent remarks. If you look at people like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and how she just tabled this Islamophobia bill, and if you look at Maryam Monsef and how she worked with feminists to cover up this Islamophobia, this Islamic terrorist campaign, you can see that their Islamophobia agenda worked, right? It's all it is just diabolical narcissism and gaslighting. Essentially, They have committed atrocities. They legislate things in their religion that are completely unacceptable. Those of us here in the West who are conscious realize that and are saying, no, we don't want that. And we see that you're trying to bury that, and create this new moderate Islam so that you can gaslight us into thinking that this is not a reality when we can see that it is, right? And that's because they want Islam to have a place within our government. Okay, that's why you have Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tabling Islamophobia bills. She tabled that Islamophobia bill shortly after I said that Muslims should be monitored by Canadian Security Intelligence Services. Not all Muslim communities, but a lot of Muslim communities, and I can name them, and I'll do that in another video, should be monitored by Canadian Security Intelligence Services. And shortly after I announced that, she tabled the Islamophobia bill. She claims that she did it in response to Lauren Boebert. That's BS. You want to tell me what happened to sticks and stones might break my bones, but names will never hurt me? You want to tell me that just because Lauren called you a jihad squad, that the entire world should be subjected to your Islamophobia bill? Because Lauren Boebert called you the jihad squad, which you are part of the jihad squad? Like, that's exactly what you are. And what, now the whole world has to suffer because of it? Like, it's pathetic. The whole thing is pathetic, and we're not buying it anymore. We're not buying it anymore. We are at a place in Canadian history whereby those of us who came, in the 80s and 90s, we're grown now, and we've seen the policies and we've seen the system, and a lot of it is not going to work. Like this multiculturalism agenda that you have going on, it's not going to work. Okay, and I can do a whole other video on that, on why I do not believe in multiculturalism at all. I don't support it at all. When you come to Canada, you assimilate to Canadian culture. You can keep what's good about your culture, but you ultimately, once you become a Canadian citizen, you're Canadian. That's it. And if you can't give that loyalty to this country, then leave. Don't expect this country to be loyal to you when you can't be loyal to this country. Go ahead, call me hateful, call me discriminatory, call me whatever you want. It wasn't any of you who saved me from my abduction. It was Canada that saved me from my abduction. So I will put this country first. I will put this country first. If the rest of you won't put this country first, if you want to put your Mohammedan darkness, your religion before our country, and you think I'm going to let you do that, it's not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. So this is why I do not support Muslims occupying office. I have tabled the Prohibition on Muslims Occupying Government Office Act, because there is no way for Muslims to legally occupy office here in the Western world. Muslims are obligated to swear allegiance to their Prophet Muhammad. They're obligated to promote Sharia law and to protect it by any means necessary, even if it means by force, using unlawful methods to do it, using criminal activity to do it. Whatever it is they have to do, they will do it if it's in the name of Islam. And so here in the West, what they're going to do is they're never going to fully be part of our government system. They're always going to create a little ghetto, basically, within our government. And it's this little ghetto now that you can't go near it. And that's the jihad squad. That's what they've created, this little ghetto. And they've attached all their marginalized people to it. And essentially, there's this pocket of people within our government that are tolerating this kind of, terrorism and this kind of political activity happening within our government. They're tolerating it. And then you have political leaders like Donald Trump who've stepped in and said, no, we're not doing it this way anymore. We're going to take a hard stand against immigration. We're going to take a hard stand against Islamic terrorism. We're going to take a hard stand against all the groups that support Islamic terrorism, right? And this is why I support the direction that Donald Trump is taking, because you really cannot negotiate with terrorists, because their goal is to kill and destroy, so and conquer and enslave and oppress. So you can never negotiate. It's just like how you can't negotiate with coronavirus, you can't negotiate with a terrorist. It's the same thing. And so when you want to allow, I'm not saying Muslims are all terrorists. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Muslims cannot fully give loyalty to any Western government without first leaving Islam. And unless they're willing to do that and fully become westernized and accept Jesus Christ as God and the Son of God and be willing to live from that place, they should not occupy office, because they will always be, the law that they follow and the law that they're loyal to, which is Sharia law, is treasonous to our Constitution and our civilization. So that's my 2 cents on that, and I'll be posting more videos about this as to why I believe that not only that it's not that Muslims, it's not that they just shouldn't occupy office, it's that it's actually domestic terrorism to allow them to occupy office. All right, until next time, stay awake and aware.